welcome to the Quiet Operator podcast. Today, I'm talking with Elena Fensom, who runs Babo Finance. Elena, lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm so excited.
Hey, me too. Especially talking to someone that's in the mortgage broking industry. So,
100%. We get to
Elena,
talk
for
about
those people that
business.
aren't familiar with how a mortgage brokerage works, do you
Yes.
mind sort of telling me a little bit about how you got started and what you do?
Yes. So I actually started in mortgage broking when I was 19.
Wow.
And I started as a loan support officer many years ago. I say like coming up to 20 years ago. So 20, coming up to 20 years ago. And then within about 6 months of working as a loan support officer, I was promoted to a broker. So going out to see clients in resi and commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked actually in the firm that I'm working in now. And since then, I've kind of weaved in and out of the industry a couple of times. I moved overseas. I worked in private banking overseas and then came back. I worked in the medical space in high net worth banking and then worked PAYG a couple of times as a broker. And yeah, then about just coming up to 3 years ago, I bought into this business. So yeah, soon to be 1st of July. In a month's time, it'll be 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So this is your first time in all that period that you've actually been a business owner.
correct.
Wow. Which
Correct.
is, so in a lot of ways, what was that drove you towards realizing that you wanted to own the business?
This is going to sound really sad, but it was actually my husband's. My husband always saw potential in what I could achieve, but I didn't really believe it as much. And I had the backing in what I wanted to do, but not really the execution part. And so he and I came up with the proposal together. And yeah, I just came to my existing business partners and said, this is what I want to do. And everyone said yes, which is really cool. So yeah.
Terrific. So behind the scenes, from a strategy point of view, you've got the partners, but from a day-to-day basis, is it yourself that's calling most of the shots?
Yes, so just me as the head broker, and our team is a bit separated from the accounting practice. So yes, there are four accounting partners, and then they've got quite a large business, and we're a separate add-on to that. So there's myself, and then there's another broker, her name's Cindy, and then our offshore team.
Wow. Okay. Offshore team. And so offshore team based in Philippines?
In the Philippines, so they all work remotely. So some are in Cebu, one in Manila. So there's 5 offshore, 2 in Cebu, 1 in Manila, and 2 near Clark.
Okay. Gotcha. So all in kind of that Manila northern part region, I believe.
Yes.
Amazing. And so you mentioned, so there's an accounting firm connection. How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, so my dad is actually one of the founding partners of this firm. So a lot of people ask, like, why is the business called Babo Finance? And Babo is actually my maiden name. So that's the connection point. And I've actually worked in the practice a number of times in the past, but never as an owner. And I think it needed to get to a point where I was a bit more mature, a bit older, to be able to say, this is something that I actually want to run and buy into. And so, yeah, so this has been, the accounting practice has been running for well over 40 years. So before I was born, and they've established a really amazing client base. They've got a wide demographic, a really big business. And yeah, I'm blessed to have them as referral partners for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And so when you touch on referral partners, does that stop you from being able to get other accounting firms as referral partners, or do you?
No, I still reach out to other accounting groups. So now this year has changed a little bit, where I was quite reliant on the internal client base, whereas now that I focused a bit more on, leveraging a LinkedIn profile, that's like I've pivoted in a different way. And so now I'm dealing more with, other accountants, insurance brokers, financial planners, buyers agents, lots of different people now, just opening that up through LinkedIn, which has been quite a nice, a bit of a different world, I guess. I've been shielded up until now.
Sure. But then when you've got people that are coming in and they understand the firm, they may have even dealt with you in previous roles when you're there. So yeah, and they'd be familiar with the familial connection to the
Yeah,
actual business.
yeah,
And that person's coming in, that's quite a warm lead.
correct,
Trust is already extremely high.
correct,
Whereas when
correct.
you start dealing with leads which are colder, did you find that meant you had to change your introduction or your approach to when you're meeting clients?
Yes, big time. It's exactly like you said, because you're coming from a trusted source. Not to say that other accountants or referral partners aren't, but there are so many clients that I've dealt with over the years that come back and go, "Oh, you're Tim's daughter," or "Oh, you did asset finance for me, 15 years ago." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Yes, I did." And so that's quite a nice, it's a very nice connection. And now that I'm dealing with external leads, it's not that you have to work harder, you just kind of have to change the process and the dialogue a little bit so that they understand what's the value proposition from my end, because it's a bit different. Whereas when you're dealing internally, it's it's like you said, it's a warmer transaction. People already understand the value proposition and it's not that much of a hard sell. So yeah, it's not to say that external is a hard sell. It's just you really have to work harder for it, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah. Because I guess it's also be similar to dealing with an existing client that comes
Mm.
back to you for a second and multiple loans. Do you have a lot of your client base that fall into that category at the moment?
Yes, a large chunk refer existing repeat business, and a lot of people that we deal with also then refer family and friends that they know. So we, it's it's quite an incestuous little pool of people
Sure.
that we have that come back, and it's actually a really nice, and you just build really nice relationships and connections with people, because then you'll be dealing with their kids, let's say, if they're buying a property, because I might be dealing with like the grandparents or the parents, and then I'm dealing with the grandkids. You've got this legacy built in, and it's a really beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of repeat clients coming back to us, which again is a really nice to have. So very
Yeah.
blessed.
I think that's probably testament to the fact that they're having a great experience if they're having it. I always found it interesting when I was broking how I remember I would be sitting down with the mum and dad and the kids would be coming in. I could remember them with their school bags. And the thing which always used to make me feel a combination of happy and old would be when the kids were calling me going, I'm buying my first home.
How
and,
nice is
and you
it
get the
though as
driver's
well?
license and they're already 22.
Where did the time go? What's happening here?
Yeah, I
What
still feel
universe
the
am I in?
same, but you're like, how did
How did
how
they get
did they
old?
grow up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that on a regular basis, not
But
gonna
you're saying
lie.
so the most you've ever done is three generations. So you've done the grandparents, their kids, and the kids of the kids. That's
Yep, yep, no word of a lie. That's actually a thing that we've done a number of times, actually. So and again, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing for sure, because it's just, yeah, circle of life, and it's really nice to see that these people just want to come back and deal with us. So I'm happy as
sure.
long as they're
It
happy.
seems like what comes across in our conversations that we've
Mm,
had is that your passion for the actual work itself. So when you're dealing with multiple generations, I assume that it's gone beyond just a client based relationship. It's almost like a trusted advisor, but also a friendship
correct.
combines it
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, big time. That's what we leverage a lot. And exactly like you said, so for me, it's not just, hey, I'm going to deliver you, I want to settle your property and we're just getting you a loan and you're never going to speak to me again. That's not how, I've never been that way.
Mhm.
And the service is probably the thing that I'm so passionate about the most, purely because if they have a really good experience, well, then they know that that's just what they're going to get every single time. And so for for me, I will never, ever, you're going to be like, why is she getting brain fog? But I have brain fog all the time. Why is she going off on a tangent? But I will never, ever give up on the process being, or not the process, just the service being the number one thing that they get to experience. And then that leads into the friendship, the connection that we build. It's just like a natural progression, because if you're delivering something that's really, really good for them, they're just going to be happy and they want to talk to you. I don't know. And it's also as well, when you're a really open personality, people just want to deal with you naturally as well, and they'll automatically come back to you. So I don't know, they kind of feed each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. But the one question that it sort of leads me to, and it's something a lot of the small business owners have happen, because you become this immediate source of all of the information, but at the same time you've built out what looks like a really large and a really good team. So how are you able to segment that across and push people towards dealing with things that maybe, for example, they've got trouble with their offset account,
Yep.
or they need their settlement to be sped up? There's only one of you. There's only 24 hours.
That's been my biggest learning, I think, because at the start it was just me and I would do everything, and I'm a massive perfectionist. And so if I was across every part of the process and I delivered on every part of the process, then I would be happy. But it's just not the right way to operate long term. It's not sustainable. So when I've had people come into the business, I've been really, really cautious about how I train them, how I onboard them, what my expectations are, and for them to understand that the service that they're giving to the client is the key thing. And without that, then we don't have a good experience for the clients, and we have nothing. So having to teach other people that same way is really hard and really painstaking. But once you do that and you embed it into people and you ingrain it in them, then they just follow suit. Like, you can tell that this is something that I'm super passionate about. So when I'm talking to my staff or my team, I talk exactly the same way. It doesn't change. So they understand if you're not delivering how I am, then we're letting that client down, and you're a reflection of me and you're a reflection of the wider business. So we need to deliver every single time. And so my onshore, so Cindy, she works alongside me. She's exactly like how I am. We deliver. I didn't even need to teach her that. That's just how she is. So that's tick, amazing. For the offshore, it's taken a little bit longer, but once they get it, and because they're their own little ecosystem, they teach each other to be that same way. And now the back end process, I'm not even involved in it anymore.
Terrific.
I know. I love it. It's so good.
That's the dream. It's basically you bring the client in and then push it out.
I'm like, I premise that at the initial conversation with the client. I say, my team is the team is an extension of me. The experience that you're getting with me, you'll also get with the rest of the team. And I introduce every person so that that client doesn't go, oh, who am I dealing with at this point? No, they know you're dealing with Q at your credit strategy. You're dealing with Christian. He's my senior loan processor at this point. And then when we're getting reviews from clients, they're actually talking about my offshore team, which is really cool, because that's what I want. I want them to feel independent and go, we've owned this process. We're responsible for it. We've delivered a good outcome. And now the client's talking about us. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
And that's reinforcing the behavior that
Correct.
you need them to do.
Correct.
I guess that's so much more powerful than just giving someone, a nice lunch or a bit of extra money.
Correct. Correct. It means more to them, because then they understand, and they really value when clients talk about them. They love it when they see a review about them or feedback about them. It's like, it's made their day. So I'm very proud of them, for sure.
As you're explaining that, what I'm getting is, because I think that if you look at the evolution of most small businesses and mortgage brokerages, but it really can be any sort of consulting business, is that you have someone who's usually very good at what they do, like yourself, and then at best they can leverage themselves to do a little more by having effectively underlings that do the stuff for them. They're still really massively involved in that center part. But it sounds like what you've been able to do is you've had a combination of onshore and offshore staff that are not just allowing you to leverage more, but actually having people that can run with the whole piece.
100%.
But there's no way that it started like that. So talk to me. How did you get there to begin with?
So when I first came into the business, I built out my entire CRM and my entire process from scratch. And that was so I'm very process driven. I really enjoy that part of the business. And I think that by setting up the process right, it sets everything up for success. And it took me a number of times, probably not enough, countless times, to make mistakes and then go, okay, I'm changing it, make another mistake, and then I'm changing it. So it was me. So sorry, let me backtrack. So Cindy, that works with me, she went on maternity leave pretty much. I'd say I was in the business maybe 3-4 months, and then she went on mat leave. So I was by myself and started building out the process, started getting deal flow come in, was just managing it on my own. And then I went through the process of sending off deals per deal to get the loan processing done because I was getting a bit too busy. And then I got to a point, where I was by myself writing, I think it was maybe like 6 million a month. And I was like, started getting exceptionally stressed out and thought I need to start bringing in maybe offshore. And so I went through a process of onboarding, and it took me a long time to get the right person because I also didn't understand that when I had to onboard someone, I actually had to go through a really rigorous training process. And not a lot of people really talk about that. Mm-hmm. So people just say onboard offshore. You can get someone that's experienced and they'll run with it. And it's like, yes, they can have the experience, but do they know your way of working? And that's the thing that was a steep learning curve for me because I was so used to working by myself. Mm-hmm. So my process was built for me being a solo broker, a solo operator, not having anybody help me, and I wasn't thinking longer term. So when I had my first, who I've had now for over 2 years, my first senior loan processor come in, I was pulling my hair out. And this is Christian, and he's going to watch this, and he's going to say, shout him out. So I better shout him out. So shout out to Cece because he's been my longest standing person that's been with me. And I had to really peel everything back of, okay, you know how to do loan processing, but this is the way I want you to do it. Mm-hmm. And we had to go on this learning curve together to then, and this is not to say that what they do is wrong, but a lot of offshore will look very granular and it's very task driven and tick box. I had to say, let's take the blinkers off and let's start learning this way. Let's open it up and say, okay, if you've got one step, what's the next step? What do we need to do? And it's more about them getting curious to know, okay, I'm going to be really responsible for this and I'm going to start processing it to go, I'm not just thinking about this one task, I'm thinking about the end. Mm-hmm. So like you mentioned about a settlement, if there's an urgent settlement, but you're at submission stage, well, let's think about the settlement. If we do need to bring it forward, how do we do that? Let's think about it now. And so I made sure I really, really sat with each individual and trained them. And it took me a long time and I would lose my voice very frequently because I would be talking so much. But then we recorded a lot of sessions. I created a lot of SOPs. We did a lot of workshops. And then as I onboarded more people, I had all that training bank there, which was like, that's the one thing that I think is the biggest blessing. And then what I ended up doing was getting the offshore. So Christian, for example, would record his own sessions of training the other staff.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So then it wouldn't just be me training. It would be that offshore person then training somebody else. And now we're at a stage where, because there's 5 of them, they work really beautifully together and they train each other. So if they don't know something, the first thing that they have to do is they set a meeting up, they have a placeholder, They have to record their session, and then we talk about it later. And that in itself, the fact that they do that and they know that that's the thing, I feel like I've won already. So
Yeah, because I think one of the biggest things that when anyone looks to use offshore staff is, like you said, it's effectively they think it's a silver bullet.
yeah,
Hire someone, and then all of your problems are going to happen. And for most businesses, what it actually means when they're looking to hire, they're usually hiring too late.
yes,
So they're looking to hire when they need someone as opposed to
correct,
when they're forecast to be needing someone. So now they've got
correct,
to take time out of doing the work to now
correct.
train the person, which means that your productivity actually drops. And then this creates conflict, and a lot of people say offshoring doesn't work.
Correct. And that's so true, right? So I know I have a capacity in my team, and a lot of people say to me, oh, you've got 5 people. Yes, but I've taught them all different functions within the business. And not only that, I have done that purposefully so I can then, for a couple of reasons, I want them to be independent to be able to train each other and get to a point where they all feel comfortable with their part of the process to then cross skill, but to then say, Elena, we've done enough, we understand this enough, so that then now I can just shove deals in and I'm not going to be stressing about the process falling apart, because that's not what I want. I don't want to experience that, because then it obviously lets the client down. But not only that, it's not a great experience for the staff, and then it's not a great experience for me as the business owner. So I've done that purposefully, and that's a big thing, what you said about hiring too late, doing that. Nah. I know it costs more, but you're setting yourself up for the longer term. Why not? I'm doing it to be sustainable. Yeah, so that's my plan.
Yeah, well, it's also, I'd argue that it doesn't cost more to hire the right person. It costs more to try and do it on the go. And
Correct.
from everything you've said about how you're structured, I was wondering, how do you handle, because you mentioned you've got 5 offshore staff, but only a couple are ever in the same location at the one time. So do you bring them together? Do you go there and spend time with them?
I actually went in March, my first trip. So I brought them all together, and we all worked together, which was really awesome. I was there for 4 or 5 days, and it was the best thing I've ever done. I'm so glad. I want to go again. I want to go every year to go and spend time with them. And it's really beautiful, right? So the ones that are in Manila and Clark, the girls are now friends. So they went to a music festival a couple of weeks ago. So I
Oh,
love
wow.
that. Yeah, because they're all friends. Like it's really, yeah, it's really beautiful. And I feel like I feel as though I've hit the jackpot, because my credit analyst, as an example, her partner is now my loan processor. So they live together. And then my other loan processor, his partner is now my other loan processor. So I've got 2 partners, 2 couples working for me. So they're not isolated. And then my asset finance processor is now friends. Like they're all friends together anyway. And we actually have a group chat. We all text each other on the weekends and see what we're doing. And like I see what they're up to and vice versa. So without that culture and that connection piece, I don't think we would work as well together. So that's probably another thing that I would say to people, is that if you do hire offshore, it's good to have more than one person, because they can then gel and they create their own culture together. And I just foster that even more so.
No, it sounds like you've worked really hard to have that good culture in the business. My only question is though, I mean, you're a business owner. You're doing all of these things. It sounds like you've been very hands-on with the training process. You're also raising 2 young boys. How do you handle things like stress and burnout, being a mother and also a business owner?
So probably not very well. I think, look, my boys, like, this is the thing that everybody understands about me. My boys and my family is my primary core value above everything else. Being a mum is number one for me, and then everything else falls after that. So my boys always come first. So as does my husband. My 3 boys always come first.
My wife would say the same. She always says
Yeah.
she has 2 kids in the house.
I say 3. I've got 3 boys for sure, and they always come first. And anything that they need, like that's the beauty of our industry, is that because it's flexible, I'm able to go and be with them if I need to pick them up from school or one's sick or whatever. I always prioritize that first. And then how do I handle stress? So how I mentioned to you at the start of the conversation. So last year I did go through a burnout phase. And so I'd say from when I started the business up until last year, so I was about just over 2 years in, I was focused purely on making this a success. That's it. That was my primary focus. Of course, my boys were always my priority, but I knew as a mum I could compartmentalize each thing and say, I need to deal with my boys and then I need to deal with work. I was working really long hours. My husband would obviously pick up the slack with the boys. We moved house as well. So we had sold our family home to buy our now long-term family home. So we moved house twice. I was obviously still working quite long hours. And then how I'd mentioned to you, I really want 3 kids. Like that's my dream. I want 3 boys. And so last year as we were moving house, I actually had a miscarriage. And then I had influenza. I got influenza A, which was awful. And during that time, I still kept working. And I got to a point where after the miscarriage, I recovered. But then what started happening was my level of energy, which you can tell I'm quite energetic, it just deteriorated.
It doesn't show at all.
It deteriorated completely. And so I didn't have any, like I say, bandwidth. That's the thing that I always reference. Like bandwidth is the thing that keeps me going. And as long as I have the bandwidth, then I know I can get stressed, but because I'm eating into the bandwidth, but I had nothing left. And I got to the stage where my psychologist actually said to me, if you don't stop working for 2 weeks and just be on strict bed rest, nothing, you can't see anyone. So I couldn't see my kids, which was really hard. We're going to put you in hospital. And so it was either you stay home and do nothing and recover. So I had to go stay at my parents' house for 2 weeks. I couldn't have my phone. So Cindy in the office took my phone and my laptop and said, we're managing this for you. Don't look at your phone. Don't do anything. Don't contact anyone and just rest. And so I did that and I was so much better for it, because after that, and like there's physical things that happen after burnout occurs. And this is the thing. People don't really understand what it is, but when it happens to you, it's really, really scary. And I didn't listen to the signs because I kept eating into that bandwidth too long. And I probably should have said to myself earlier, hey, maybe don't run yourself down that much, because your kids need you and your business needs you. So after that, I went through, this really long recovery, which I'm still in at the moment. Like it was scary. If I talk about the things that happened, like I had files that I was dealing with at the time. And like I said, I'm very involved in all my clients. Some of them contact me now during that time. I can't remember who they were. Actually, I don't have any recollection of the files I worked on. I don't have any recollection of the conversations I had, what happened with my boys. I lost my hair. My hair fell out. Just crazy things like my skin. I don't know, like lots of stomach issues after that I'm still trying to recover from. Just not nice things, and I really don't wish it on anyone. So if anyone can take away from this conversation, it's probably, if you do have those warning signs, pull back and use help, leverage help, lean on people, lean on support, because if you don't, like this shitty thing's going to happen to you. Sorry for swearing, but this shitty thing's going to happen to you. And it's a really long recovery after that. And it's just not fair on yourself and for other people that are close to you. So
With the benefit of hindsight, what are maybe some of the early indicators that someone should be looking for?
I constantly had severe anxiety. So in my chest and in my stomach, like forever, I always had anxiety that I ignored, and I always felt exhausted, and I would ignore it and I would push through it. So I used to sleep like not very long, like 4 or 5 hours, and then I would get up and I would work. So in the morning before my kids got up, I worked. Then I'd work all day, drop my kids off, at school. I'd work all day. I'd pick them up. I'd work again. No, that's a no-no. So I'm very strict with my boundaries now, and I don't work in the morning, and I'm very strict with my time at the end of the day. So let's say I do have a file or a client that I need to see after hours. I have a set time where I say maybe after 7 o'clock, I don't work anymore. And on the weekends, I used to work. I used to set myself up for the week ahead. And I'm not saying not to do those things, because it's really, I was into productivity hacks and things like that. But when you're a person that can feed into the stress, you have to tell yourself, when is enough enough? And I never knew when enough was enough. I just kept going, yeah, I've got to do the next thing. I've got to do the next deal. I've got to speak to the next client. Slow down. That's one thing. Slow down. Slow down.
Because I think with anyone that's self-employed, and particularly in a dynamic-based industry that you're in, where there's, at any point in time, there's a dozen different things that you can do. There could be a file that requires sort of urgent attention. There could be a client that requires that. And then, if you're just taking all of that on, it's what leads to a lot of the exhaustion for brokers, and I'm sure for all small business owners. In terms of, so you've got that process, it sounds like you've got in place, you've created clearly defined limits, which is really hard to do when you're self-employed, particularly with your mobile phone being with you just about everywhere. Are there any other things that you're doing at the moment from a health and wellness side of things to decompress?
Yeah, so the big thing as well that I didn't say, I put do not disturb. I have very specific do not disturb times on my phone that I'm like, without that, I would be answering emails like 2:30 in the morning sometimes. So that's a big thing. And now I focus a lot more on, so I used to be a yoga teacher as well. I didn't mention that, but I had a business as a yoga teacher. And so I'm really big into the woo-woo energy. I do a lot of meditation, trying to move as best as I can. So my husband, bless him, he in our new house made a gym. So we have a gym that he and I now will get up in the morning or in the evenings. We'll just do sessions with the boys to teach our sons to lift weights, which is really nice. The biggest thing though for me, I think, is I go for a walk pretty much nearly every day. And just as long as I'm going outside, I think nature, greenery, fresh air gives energy. And people really need to get outside. Even if it's raining, it's like put a raincoat on, go outside. If you don't, you're just stuck indoors looking at a screen. That can't be healthy for anyone. Like, we need to put the phone down and go outside. Just go outside. It's my biggest takeaway.
Get some natural light and get some fresh air.
Yeah. Honestly, if you can do that, like before the start of the day, before you like set your coffee up, before you deal with the kids, my husband and I will go and stand outside. The best thing, actually, take your shoes off, go stand on the grass and look at the sun. Woo-woo.
No, why I'm laughing about this is because that's what my wife and I do.
I love that.
We've got some vegetables and things like that. So
How
we'll
good
do
is it?
a morning harvest, and provided it's not too wet. You always know when it's been raining overnight because there'll be little bits of grass that are dragged on the inside of the house from our feet.
But how nice is
no
that,
one tells you, wash your feet when you walk there.
But how nice is that though? What a nice experience that you both do. Is it like a ritual thing now?
Yeah, well, it's also For me as well, I found middle part of the afternoon where that's the temptation is always to hit a chocolate bar or a
Yeah,
biscuit or a coffee or whatever that pickup that you need. But I found that about 5 minutes of barefoot walking has an even better impact, and you feel it through your whole body, not just that
agreed,
temporary, I guess, caffeine or sugar hit.
agreed, agreed.
That's got it.
Then nature is the best medicine. So that's a big part of what I try and do as well. And spending time with my boys. If I do that, if I just hug them, and I said this the other day to Cindy, I was like, I can just smell them. It sounds weird, but I smell them and I'm like, oh, everything's right with the world now. So that's my one thing. I do that every night. I sit with my boys, I read with my boys, and I smell their.
They're lucky to have a mother that cares so much.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. It's like the biggest compliment that I can get. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, 100%. And I mean, because ultimately that's the reason why you've set up a business. Is I assume you want to be able to have that little bit of flexibility. If you compare what it was like when you were in the full-time workforce, where you're working for someone, I mean, we've heard a lot about the fact that there's a lot more work involved, but there's, I guess, some upsides to it in terms of, are you able to take the kids to school or be a part of, sometimes if there's a daytime activity that they've got?
Yes. And that's the benefit, I think, of, yes, PAYG sometimes is easier for people. And yes, there are a lot of hard aspects to being self employed. But the fact that, yeah, as an example, my little son has some hearing issues, so I get to go to the specialist, and I don't have any issues with going, okay, I need to take time off. I've been able to, he's had surgery. I can just go and be with him and then stay with him when he needs to recover. I can take him to his appointments. With my older son, I can go to this Friday, he has his school assembly, and I get to go to the school assembly without stressing. It's just little things like that where if I'm working from home, I can just go to their school and pick them up, or yeah, just a lot of flexibility that I never had before, and I don't have to tell anyone. Oh, so good.
You almost feel guilty about it at times.
Bad. Honestly, even when I'm doing it now, sometimes I go, is somebody gonna like tell me off? I don't know. But it's really it's a great thing to be able to do. And in saying that, so Cindy has a little daughter as well, and I say to her, like, if she's tired or if she's sick, you don't have to come in at 9 o'clock and be here. I understand. I can empathize. I have kids too. If you need to take her somewhere, it's okay. It's not like, I know you're going to make up the time. I trust you. So you do your thing. And I think that's what makes it a really nice environment when you're a mum, to be able to have that support, for sure.
And also, I think you, through having that larger level of empathy, which, say, for example, maybe a lot of people that aren't parents, or maybe a male business owner wouldn't necessarily be able to go into that level of detail. So it creates something that's really brilliant. Just to sort of go back for a second, when you mentioned that the time when you were going through the burnout and you had a few weeks off, but you'd handed everything over to the team. If you look at how most businesses, we mentioned, they're more like surgeons in terms of, you're precise at being able to do it and you need to be there to instruct, but at that particular point you're not there and you're not being a part of it. So has that been able to show you that things can work just fine without you being involved for a period of time?
Yes. And I have Cindy to thank, and the team, of course, because they're able to take everything on without me being here. And yes, that was 2 weeks off. Even this year I had to have surgery again, and they've taken everything whilst I'm not here. And yes, I'm probably the driving force of going, okay, what do we need to do to expand the business? But the fact that if there's things coming in that I don't have to manage it, that's a really nice to have. And I think that a lot of business owner or mortgage brokers, that's what they need to think about. They need to think about how can they remove themselves from the process and from the business so that it can still run without them. It's a really hard thing to do. And like, I'm not saying I've perfected it, but I think that will be my next plan as well, to be able to grow it and scale it and say, okay, I'm not going to be the head broker. I'm not going to be the primary person that people come to. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Cindy? Is it going to be other brokers? What can I do to be more hands off, to grow it in a different way? So exciting times.
No, it's like it's a great way of looking at it, and how you've been able to achieve it. So if a broker was starting out or a business owner was starting out, what would you recommend that they do to be able to be in a position? Is it just documenting their processes from day one, or is there anything else?
I think knowing how they want their process to be. So the first thing is map it out, say it out aloud, and that could be, in an agile way if they want to visually see what it looks like. Or I think it's more end goal. What do you want it to be like at the end? And then work backwards from there. So like I said about myself, I was thinking solo. So I was just, yep, this is my process. This is what I think. It's, what do you want it to be? If you want to have multiple brokers and you want to have a support team, then think at the end, what does that look like? And map it backwards from there. If you just want to work with you want to be the only broker and you want to have maybe one offshore staff member, which is totally fine as well, you still have to think about at the end, okay, what does that look like? What do I want that offshore person to be doing? What can they take away from me? How can they alleviate things from me? I think just asking lots of questions and being curious about the end, and then working backwards and saying, okay, yes, the process is important and documenting it is really important, but it's also a bit more about, well, building a training bank, building videos, building, like, to the point where I obsess over little details. So we have like a really strict naming convention, following that so that you've got it mapped out from the start and so that everyone follows that same process. What tasks do you want to have? What automations? What text messages? I know this is psychotic, but this is how I think about things. And without the organization and being that strictly organized from the start, and not thinking about it at the end, well, things are going to fail and, you might not have as much of a nice process. And this is not to say that my process is perfect, because it's so far from that. But it's the fact that I can keep curious about and keep asking questions about, what can I do differently next time? Or what would be better? Or how can we change this to suit, a bigger client? Or, okay, if I want 10 brokers, well, what do I want? What do I need to get there? And how do I change the process? And fortunately, the team can handle everything. So I can think about those bigger ideas and go, okay, this is what I'm thinking. How do I get there? What do I need to achieve that? I think that's important for people. Think about the end goal. Think about your vision. What do you need to do to get to that end goal and end vision?
No, that's amazing. Look, Elena, there's so much that I've learned about how you run your business today. It's I can see the reason why you've been so successful with everything that you do, and wishing you the best of luck. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank you.
today.